Hey everyone, this video here today is going to be a mix of different reactions because today I watched a video about a bunch of different stories of people getting arrested on bath salts, which I feel like has led through different actions because unlike other stuff that would just make you nod off, bath salt seems to make you almost animalistic. And most of the stories here make me feel like if I was a police officer that was sent to one of these cases, I would just get back into my car and drive away. Because in theory, how many times they try using pepper sprays and tasers with little to no effect. The worst part to me at least is how quickly this epidemic started. When just a short amount of time of it being popular, a lot of these stories also popped up. But I do want to say now that there are graphic details here in both pictures and stories. So if you find that kind of stuff disturbing, this definitely isn't the video for you.
In the early 2010s, people all over the US and Europe were able to casually walk into any given convenience store and purchase illicit substances, hard ones to say the least. This led to nothing short of international pandemonium, with some wondering if it was the beginning of the zombie apocalypse.
That's funny. He is right. I can definitely imagine being like an older person and seeing some guy on bath salts and immediately seeing them as like a zombie. Sort of.
Designer drugs. They were called as such because, in order to hide their true nature as a hardcore drug, the designers would often brand the goods as either bath salts, cleaning powder, plant food, potpourri, or all manner of different products. Given their appearance of white, powder-like little granules, one might find those labels believable. They would then slap a sticker on that would read, "Not for human consumption," in order to create a bit of plausible
Oh, you're just begged to be caught at that point.
any sort of prosecution while dealing drugs in gas stations, convenience stores, and over the internet. These products first came to be in around the year 2009, but it wasn't until 2010, 2011 that they really exploded in popularity, usage, and memes. Calls started pouring into US and European...
There probably are kids that were introduced into drugs by memes. Like, the first started as a joke, online. But they probably found friends in high school that made them use it.
Shops, how dangerous could they be? They were easier to buy than a simple can of beer. Well, the answer to that question is very.
There's no way it was easier to buy than a can of beer. If you're a kid, then yeah, I don't think the drug dealer's gonna ask for age verification with an ID, probably.
Ballooned into an astounding 6,000. If one were to ingest the designer drugs, they would face all manner of concerning symptoms. Headaches, nausea,
How do you consume? Do you actually? Oh, you don't eat it, of course, but how do you inject? I feel like you have to inject it. That's the only way.
Who are already susceptible to psychotic conditions were to ingest, smoke, snort, inject, or otherwise administer the dangerous substance, it would tend to send their pre-existing disorders into overdrive.
Oh, so yeah, you can take it whichever way you want. Okay, so there's like a miracle drug. That's good.
And that's putting it lightly. The first incident to really bring bath salts into the forefront of the public conscience was an incident known as the Miami Cannibal Attack, or more casually, the bath salt zombie.
That's actually terrifying. That sounds like a massive movie back in the 70s that really blew up.
A man named Rudy Eugene attacked a homeless man on the MacArthur Causeway in Miami, Florida. The entire incident, which was caught on tape, became broadcast on news channels not only throughout the US, but internationally as well. The attack started when Rudy accused the homeless man, Ronald Popo, of stealing his Bible. He then beat him until he lost consciousness, tore off his pants, and most shockingly began to bite down on his face. Rudy began to eat away at the unconscious man's face, ultimately biting off most of his face above the beard line, including eating his entire left eyeball.
Jesus Christ.
The whole attack left Ronald completely blind, but surprisingly alive. The savage assault didn't end until the Miami PD arrived and shot Rudy on the spot. Police initially believed that...
I do not blame him. If I was called into a scene as a police officer, that would terrify me.
That any average sort of psychosis could have led to such a brutal scene without some sort of intoxicant being involved. But
that looked exactly like the chimp attack from back whenever that happened a few years ago. It was probably around the same time. But that's terrifying. The fact someone can be on that level of just aggression, even while on bath salts, the fact that you can still get to that point, terrifying.
This is where a bit of controversy began. Some would claim that this was a sign that bath salts weren't involved at all, while others would claim that the standard testing wouldn't have revealed the chemicals in bath salts in the first place. Regardless, this became the most well-known bath salts-related crime and brought the designer drugs into the spotlight. Whether or not this case really involved the substance, many others have been proven to.
It wouldn't be that hard to imagine that the guy was on bath salts. If there was any drug that would make someone that violent, it would be bath salts.
Involved the arrest of a 35-year-old woman named Tracy Mabb. At 5 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon, Tracy walked out into the middle of a highway in Pompano Beach, Florida, and pulled up her shirt to show her bare chest. She didn't stop there, pulling off her pants as well and showing passers-by the full set of goods, front and back, as she spun around in an intoxicated stupor. Motorists were rubbernecking as the naked woman posed and danced throughout the street, leading to danger in more ways than one.
If that was in Florida, that's probably like a common occurrence. Like, I feel like most people there are like, oh, there she is again, all the time.
Officers, quote, "I don't give a fuck," when they told her that what she was doing was illegal. The police threw cuffs on Tracy and arrested her then and there. It was immediately very clear that she wasn't completely coherent. Either way, she was taken in and booked. The police took a mugshot that has become nothing short of legendary, painting a clear picture of the results of abusing this particular substance. While it was initially widely reported that she was on bath salts at the time of the crime, the police never did come out with a specific confirmation. Regardless, she was held in jail on a $600 bond while the internet laughed off the entire incident.
I feel like people who get arrested for that should be at least test a little bit, just to see.
Miami wouldn't be left with only one bath salts related incident, not by a lot.
So's Miami. I mean, I'm not surprised. That would be like the safe haven for that kind of drug.
On 19th Avenue, a park notably located directly behind the North Miami Beach police station. He stripped down, removing all of his clothes, and laid down on a park bench. This was when a woman and her daughter entered through the park at the 20th Avenue entrance when they saw Shane lying there, naked, on the bench. The mother said that he was completely naked with his junk on full display.
Oh, what a knock. Come on. Let the man live in peace.
Shane stood up as she came into his vision, exposing himself fully to her toddler.
Oh, never mind.
This was when Shane looked the kid straight in the eyes and said, chillingly, "Come here, little girl, I want to stick it in you."
Oh my god. I take back that joke, that was awful.
Led the scene. Luckily, Shane never did get close enough to even touch them. Being right behind a police station, it wasn't long before the police were on the scene and arresting him. Upon arrest, they searched his clothes and found his wallet, containing both his ID and, as you may expect,
as though he was naked, how did they find the wallet in his clothes? Oh, they're probably just thrown, like, next to the bench.
He began to feel unbearably hot and removed his clothes in order to cool off in the fountain. Feeling this overwhelming sense of heat is a notably common side effect of the drug. Surveillance camera footage from the park proved the mother's story to be correct. Shane was soon hit with various charges related to lewd activity and exposure.
I feel like it should be a crime to bring a child or give birth to one in Miami. They should be born in one section of a place that has the chance of this happening way lower.
The more memorable cases took place in New York City. It all started when two teenage boys were playing basketball outside of their home, only to see a middle-aged looking woman, Pamela McCarthy, age 35, come rolling down the stairs.
They should only have one too. Oh my god, that's beautiful.
With the two buildings sharing the same parking lot, the boys were able to get a good view of what was happening as they saw this woman tumble down the stairs, rolling over her 3-year-old son, landing on top of him. She stood up, with her arm around the young boy's waist. Despite having just wiped out onto the concrete, she stood up as if nothing had happened at all. She immediately began to argue with her boyfriend, Jason Williams, who was already outside. Then she locked eyes with
he looks a little bit better than her. Like with her, I can imagine that mugshot actually being a person that would do bath salts, but he looks like a actual normal guy.
And ran upstairs to tell his dad what was going on. Pamela started to chase the boy, but he was able to get her lost behind a parked car and create some distance. Pamela then gave up.
Is that because she was fat?
Sitting down next
Come on,
to
ask
her
me.
son, choosing to begin choking him instead. Hands around his neck, she began to spin in circles and laugh. The teenager called 911 immediately as soon as he got inside. Pamela then ran back up the stairs of her apartment. When she came back out, she was completely naked. She picked up her child.
Why is it always like the natural defense of someone on bath salts?
Her boyfriend scooped the boy up and ran across the street to a nearby convenience store. Pamela ran after him, stopping in the middle of the street. She then came back to her apartment building and began to climb back up the stairs, only getting about halfway up before she fell all the way back down to the ground, landing headfirst onto the concrete. She sat up, calmed down for about a minute, and began to attempt the stairs again. She got back into her apartment one more time, this time coming out with a pit bull. only to roll down the stairs once again. Just as she did with her son, she landed on top of the dog and began to choke him as well.
Oh my god.
This all took place over only about 5 minutes.
I feel like the people always make jokes about pit bulls being like very violent out of nowhere. I feel like that's the one time that they should at least bite the owner out of instincts. It can't be that hard to agitate a pit bull and make him like revert onto its owner.
She attempted to bite one of them. They sprayed her with some pepper spray, but it had absolutely no effect. Still having her arm around the dog's neck, the police officers tried to pull her off, but it couldn't be done. This was when one officer warned her that he would tase her. She didn't care, so he fired once. As with the pepper spray, it had no effect. Pamela didn't even
That's scary. I thought of sorts of people that could just take anything while in bath salts. I wanted to make a joke about them being able to take a bullet in the head, and they probably could. I think it's not that hard to, like, miss one part of the brain that would make them fall down. I feel like some could stand up for like a few seconds before falling down.
She went into cardiac arrest shortly after and was rushed to the hospital where she ultimately passed away. Her boyfriend said after the fact that he had known of her history of drug abuse, but he had never seen her like this. Many times in the past, he had tried to get help for her, even trying to get her own mother to do something. This grandmother then took custody of Pamela's son, who was luckily treated with only minor injuries.
Thank God. I mean, he still let you see that mom while in bath salts, so I still feel horrible for him.
In Georgia, a bizarre case took place that would do nothing to help the currently spreading rumors that bath salts were leading to a cannibalism epidemic, with some even saying that they would lead to the start of the zombie apocalypse. On an average,
To be fair, after that story, it wouldn't be that far from happening.
A young man, Carl Lavenger, jumped out of the woods, completely naked, as he began
Is he
to run
green?
around the Atlanta Gulf.
I'm sure it's the lighting, but the hue on his skin looks way too green.
Police were called. Once they showed up, they attempted to subdue the man, but they couldn't. This was due to what they themselves called his superhuman strength. When that failed, they turned to the pepper spray.
He just picks up a car, throws it at them.
Left him completely unfazed. He didn't even attempt to wipe it off or even close his eyes, leaving them wide open, red and bloodshot as he continued to battle the police. Concerned, they upped the ante and pulled out the tasers. The first shot did knock Carl down to the ground, but it only stopped him for a mere moment before he stood back up and continued his attack. One officer said, "We had to tase him approximately 5 more times on the scene to get him down. It took several officers to hold him down to get him cuffed."
Jesus Christ. I feel like at that point, even the human heart, no matter like how many grams of bath salt is circulating through the veins, it should stop at that point. Like, I actually want to know, like, what part of bath salts makes it, like, that, like, possible for someone to take that much damage before being knocked out unconscious. You probably mentioned this out of the video, like, what causes it, but I just missed it, probably.
He began to state that he was going to eat the faces off of the officers. Between gibberish, curse words, and nonsensical babbling, he threatened to eat even more of the golf course patrons. He then rambled about Tupac and Biggie before he started to make animal noises before moving on to more threats. He attempted to look up at the officers, saying, "I'ma eat you. I'll eat you. I don't want to eat you, but I will." The police were able to take him under control and haul him out to a nearby hospital. Unfortunately, he wasn't finished. He lashed out and attacked one of the nurses on site, causing another brawl with the police. His behavior was quickly linked to bath salts as well, only further bringing the designer drug into the spotlight. The chaos spread all the way to Houston, Texas. This was
I'm almost here now. We're halfway through the video and it's case 5. It's gonna be like a top 10 stories where the last one is like the grandest one.
12 and 5 were left with minor injuries but fortunately survived the collision. Stephanie, instead of caring for her kids, instead began to strip off all of her clothes as she ran across the street into a nearby CVS. Upon entering the store, she quickly...
It's always the poor kids that have to like be involved into this.
Ice cream. She began to ravenously consume the ice cream then and there in the store while continuing to remove her clothing. When the police arrived, she continued to...
That does sound pretty nice. I feel like if I had a stressful day, I would just do bath salts and eat ice cream. Like, that actually sounds calming.
She was charged with multiple counts of endangering the welfare of a child as the kids were taken to live with their grandmother. Her bail was set for $2,000. The police, once again, came to find that this case was related in large part to the use of bath salts.
Why's always the poor grandmas that have to take up the kids
Up in
after something
Illinois,
like this?
Matthew V.
It probably is like the closest family they have.
himself jumped onto the top of a stranger's car and held onto the hood for an entire 4 miles as the driver attempted to get away. The driver was terrified of Matthew's demeanor, saying that he was out of his mind. When the car came to a stop, the police took Matthew into custody. Matthew exclaimed that he was merely trying to run away from people that were trying to eat him. Police came to find an empty vial which previously contained bath salts out near where the ride started, believing that they had belonged to him. Matthew, lucky to even be alive without major injury, was charged with possession of a controlled substance, disorderly conduct, and criminal damage to property.
Oh, that wasn't that bad. I was expecting something worse from that story of him being on top of a car. It is lucky that he survived. I wanted to know how fast, because at some speed, if you make like a small turn, you will just fly off the top.
With her mental state, decided to hold her over for a mental health evaluation. When they walked her back over to her new room, she began to freak out, running off into a nearby restroom. She stripped off all of her clothes and began to roll around on the bathroom floor while screaming in confusion.
Yeah, she has like frog eyes. What's the
story?
What's the story about like a village full of fish people and they have gills on their necks and big eyes? He's one of them.
An antipsychotic called Haldol and brought Carla to sit on the bed. She continued to flail around and yell at the staff. Eventually, she decided to make a break for it and run towards the door, pushing through a group of nurses and security to do so. The hospital security eventually brought her back to the bed and laid her down, but she shot back up one more time and punched a nurse in the face. She then kicked an officer and tried to bite him. She was held down until the Haldol finally put her to sleep, horse-kicking a nurse in the chest one last time as she faded.
Horse-kicking? I wouldn't be surprised if bath salts give you the same amount of power as a horse in your thighs.
Pin in her purse containing what appeared to be a white substance tightly rolled in medical tape with disco written across. Disco was the name of a specific brand of bath salts that was in circulation at the time. She was taken into...
I love how drug dealers always come up with like creative names for drugs. Like that, they at least make it somewhat appealing for new people to use them.
As the hospital police declined to press charges. After the incident, a caseworker visited her home and, upon getting permission from Carla and her boyfriend, began to look around. This led to police conducting a full search, finding needles, plenty of tinfoil, broken bottles containing brown residue, and, of course, bath salts.
The perfect place for a kid to grow up in. That's good.
After they previously had issues with her actions. In the end, both he and Carla were charged with various paraphernalia offenses.
Case number 8.
Out in Ohio, Vandalia to be specific,
Ohio, he said it.
The weird bath salts experience. In November, an 11-year-old boy came home to find a 44-year-old man, Terry Trent, sitting on his couch and watching TV. The boy had never seen this man before. The boy threw out his mother, who was next door with the neighbor. This was when Terry stood up and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. I'll get my things and go." The mother called the police and screamed for the neighbors to come and help. She came over to get her son to see.
No, come on, what the fuck? He just said he's sorry. He's by accident.
Wreath had been placed on both the front door and the garage door. She then went inside and was shocked to see that the drugged-up intruder had actually put up all of her Christmas decorations inside as well. Rather than getting into the criminal spirit, it seems that Terry had been taken over by the holiday spirit instead.
Yeah, come on, that's nice.
Call this a Christmas miracle, but anyone else would probably just say that it's really weird.
No, come on, that's heartwarming. If I saw that happen, I would immediately make him a coffee and let him sleep over the night. Even though I'd probably wake up with my kid's face eaten while he was just in the corner. So could go either way.
Knife on his possession, noting that it appeared he had been abusing bath salts. According to the police, he had a long history of drug-related charges against him. Terry was charged with burglary and taken into the Montgomery County Jail.
Oh, don't tell me he had a long sentence. At worst, he should have like 10 days in prison, just for a little bit.
Clearly had its hands full with the epidemic. The bath salts cases weren't isolated to New York City by any means, with a smaller city named Utica notably having...
I'm surprised it took this long to get to New York. I feel like that would be the birthplace of most stories. That and Florida, of course.
One Saturday night, the police were called out to investigate a woman who was reported to be, quote, emotionally disturbed. Once an officer approached her, she lunged towards him, pouncing on him and tried to bite down on his face.
Pouncing, I like that word.
Police, she was screaming that she wanted to kill them and eat them. She was taken into the hospital for a mental health evaluation. 2 days later, the same police were called to investigate yet another woman going berserk on bath salts. Once the officers showed up to the scene in which they were called, they were greeted with the sight of a 22-year-old woman in the middle of the street wearing nothing but a pair of underwear. She was foaming at the mouth, running into traffic, behaving violently, and nearly getting hit by car after car. She was screaming to anyone who may listen that her clothes were electrocuting her and that she, in her own words, had metal inside of her, whatever that might mean. She said that her skin was
That's probably just like silver in your mouth, because there have been times when I've done bath salts that I can taste silver in my mouth, and it feels weird.
Until an ambulance could arrive. She was taken to St. Elizabeth's Hospital. It turns out that she had tried to inject the bath salts into her system, but upon failing, instead decided to eat the entire bag.
Oh my god, you're so impatient. That's like people taking alcohol like through the ass, as if they're that impatient to just get drunk. Yeah, at that point, she should be grateful she didn't like keel over and die just from eating it. I feel like that would be the one situation where no matter like how good of an immune system or digestive system you have, you would die over that.
One night in Calgary, the police were called at around midnight to come check out a young man who was behaving very strangely. Witnesses had seen the young man, roughly 18 to 25, attempting and succeeding in hurting himself in various ways. The police arrived to see a nearly naked young man standing in an alleyway, slamming his face up against a fence repeatedly and behaving very irrationally. The man was spacing out entirely, not showing any response whatsoever to the police's commands. He was bleeding heavily from his face. It took what the police called a sufficient amount of officers to take him down. Once the ambulance was called, they had to chemically subdue the man in order to calm him down. The officers
chemically subdue him by giving him more bath salts. Yeah.
For pain. He was taken away to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. There, doctors found that he had nearly...
That is a good point. I'm surprised more police officers don't have like some kind of weapon that chemically like sedates them. At that point, that would probably be the best option. If they can take pepper spray and a taser, I wouldn't be surprised if that would be like the one remedy against that.
In Scottsdale, Arizona, a 45-year-old man named John Brigham had gotten into a car accident. This was when he stripped naked in the middle of the road and stood on top of his car, screaming and chanting. He managed to make his way over to a woman in a Prius nearby.
That looks like the kind of like a Bigfoot picture, where it was captured at the right time, and it's circulating all over the internet.
Prius to roll multiple times, being ejected from the car and sent flying down the road. He stood back up and then attempted to run down the road and steal another car. All the while, he was continually screaming, "The Indians are coming." The police observed John as he attempted to make his way into 2 more vehicles. In the end, 7 people were injured. One of the injured was a pregnant woman.
No.
The police finally wrangled John and took him out to jail.
I like these stories, but the second they have like some poor bastard or a pregnant woman involved, they just get like heartbreaking.
Sort of drug-induced stupor, with the witnesses claiming that he had been on bath salts. He was taken to the hospital to be evaluated. John was charged with 6 counts of endangerment, 3 counts of attempted robbery, 2 counts of aggravated assault, 2 counts of leaving the scene of a crash, 2 counts of driving under the influence, 1 count of robbery, and 1 count of vehicle theft. He was held in jail on a $100,000 bond.
No, come on. That picture does go pretty hard, I have to say. Like, that looks like some like guerrilla fighter who just liberated a capital and they're gonna have a new government.
William White to stop attempting to hit pigeons with a shovel. Upon hearing this, he turned to her and told her, "I hate you and want to kill you today," before...
Is he made out of gold?
...with his shovel.
If that was in New York, he looks like one of those people that like gets covered in gold and pretends to be a statue and gets money from it.
This was when the police were able to get a key from management and let themselves inside. He was accused of attempting to kill the old woman. However, he was completely incoherent. He didn't respond logically.
No, it's delighting. But it really looks like gold paint on his face.
He told police that he was an alien and that he had been in direct contact with Jesus Christ at the time of the attack, who had pushed him to do it in the first place. The police were forced to resort to using rubber bullets and taser guns just to arrest him. When they did, they handcuffed him to a wheelchair to get him out of the apartment. While being wheeled out, Robert began to shout, "God loves you all," while holding an expression of rage to all the bystanders who were now watching. Robert was taken to a local hospital, as well as the old woman. The old woman was injured, but nothing life-threatening. She made a full recovery. Robert was found to have been drinking soda that he had filled with bath salts.
Oh my god. That does sound pretty nice, to be honest. Okay, so it's gonna be the last story. I just wanna, no, maybe two or more.
Salts while driving a moving truck.
This could be one of those situations where the higher it goes up in the list, the worse it gets.
Crashed the truck into someone's.
I feel like that first story was already the worst. The guy biting the homeless guy's face.
Luckily, it was 2:30 a.m. and the owner of the home was sleeping in a bedroom in the back of the home when the truck plowed through and completely destroyed the living room. Unluckily, though, his home was deemed unlivable until a good number of repairs were made. The moving truck had to be dislodged from the wreckage of the home and towed away. It wasn't long before the police found the half-naked, screaming, thrashing man and subdued him. It wasn't really hard for the police to identify the man, as he had left his wallet behind in his pants. The worst part of the story is that the homeowner did not have insurance at the time, leaving his future very uncertain.
No, poor guy. I feel like it's not that bad compared to when people have had the face eaten off. Still sucks you have to pay that damage just because some crackhead
call it
did
monkey
it.
dust. One of the most well-known cases over there was that of a man in Staffordshire who climbed up on a roof in nothing but a green hoodie.
Oh my god, that looks like Mothman. That's actually scary.
He was climbing up the wall exactly the way that a monkey would. The police were called as the man trampled around the two-story roof, endangering basically only himself.
No, I'm surprised that this is the first story that took place in the UK.
Right away, they knew what they were dealing with, as they had actually arrested at least 16 people on that same drug in the month leading up to this incident.
Oh my god, it's an outbreak.
Before too long, the man did exactly what they feared he would do and jumped off the roof. When he did, he ended up breaking several different bones, mainly in his legs.
I feel like that is what you would want him to do, to prevent having to, like, arrest him. In the UK, they don't have, like, the same amount of, like, weapons as a guy in the US. Like, there's no rubber bullets, no pepper spray. They probably do have a taser, but it's probably, like, amped to be way less voltage, so it's less dangerous.
That set out to deal with nothing but monkey dust. One police officer
monkeys, I remember hearing
made a
that.
statement in which he iterated, "We have seen cases where we've got people running into traffic. We've seen cases where we've got people climbing onto buildings." This case was...
To be fair, it does live up to its namesake. Monkey dust? Come on.
In July of 2012, the United States government really went into overdrive to try to deal with the growing problem that was bath salts. In only 1 year, the drug had become an absolute national menace. The cases outlined in this video are actually only a very small fraction of the cases related to these designer drugs that happened throughout that time. The US federal drug policy was soon amended to ban the compounds most commonly found in these drugs. In the UK, things had proceeded a little bit more quickly, with some of these compounds being banned as soon as back in 2010. However, it wasn't until a good several years later that a majority of the drugs had been dealt with.
In the video?
Despite poison centers receiving thousands of calls a year related to these drugs around 2011 and 2012, by 2015 that number had decreased to about 522. These days, you never really hear about bath salts or any of those similar designer drugs anymore. To Gen Z and Gen Alpha, it would seem inconceivable that you could buy hard drugs over the counter at your average gas station, easier to purchase than even a single cigarette. However, people will always search for a new loophole in order to get high. For all we know, it could only be a matter of time before we see another similar epidemic. Who knows when and where it might be. Once again, thank you for watching my video. If you found it interesting, please give me a
God, that is scary. There probably will be some drug that can not only like overplace it, but at least be somewhat more powerful and like make the same effects but worse. Honestly, that story in the first story, sorry, that would already top what you would like be scared of bath salts. Like I can imagine being a police officer and being like, oh, bath salts, or it's probably like a small fad. But then seeing that guy eat the homeless guy's face, I would immediately be like, okay, no, this is like way worse than anything else you can buy on the streets. I want to see another video as well where like it shows like how hard it was to like kind of make the drug illegal. Of course, you can't make the drug illegal, but you can make like the compounds and the stuff people use to make it illegal. But I feel like with something that makes you that deranged, it probably just like very common like household items you can find very easily. So it would be more of a struggle to try to like make them illegal. Like this reminds me of that one drug in Russia, like crocodile, that rots your skin, where people know it's the worst thing you put in your body, but they don't care because the high is like slightly better. And I get that addiction and withdrawal can make you like combat your drug a lot of the time. But man, after one of those stories where that happens to you, or you see that, I feel like that would sober you up and be like, okay, I'm not touching that ever again. Like that sounds terrifying. I feel like it's not that hard for like a regular person to take bath salts one and then wake up the next day in jail because they ate someone's face. Like the chance of that happening seems very low in my mind, personally at least.